Well, you guys, as you know, hello everybody, sorry about that, should say hello every time I come in here. Been a little bit, yeah, not been happy about a couple of things lately, but, you know, especially the house coming down. That right there is just so corrupt and so criminal that they could do that. That is downright criminal that they're doing that. No other words for it. Sneaky, corrupt, inconceivable. It's just, I just don't get it. And I don't get how it can happen in this day and age, right? When you're supposed to be protected, and there's so many ways to be protected, and you're not protected. Right there. So, why is that house coming down? What are they hiding? Well, we've got to go back and look at the trafficking thing, because it was mentioned in the very beginning, straight from Steve, straight from his mouth. He said it. He said Kaylee was worried about it, that it was something she was worried about. Why? Why was that brought up? Well, I came across this article, and it's a look at trafficking in Idaho. She says we must do our part to educate ourselves on the signs. I'm going to bring you some of the signs of that here in the actual police reports. So I'm going to go past the video. So Twin Falls, Idaho. Every year, millions of women, children, millions of men, women and children, millions, you guys, are trafficked nationwide. Idaho is not exempt from this issue. We do currently have victims under voices that are under human trafficking, says Noemi Juarez, with voices against violence. Unfortunately, it is. We do want to say we live in a safe community, but unfortunately, we are one of the biggest hotspots for human trafficking. One of the biggest hotspots, you guys, for human trafficking. She's going to tell you why. And that's because we have so many bordering states, so many highways and freeways. The three types of human trafficking include sex trafficking, forced labor, and debt bondage, where people work to pay off debt. Kmvt told Noemi Juarez with Voices Against Violence. She says human trafficking is complex, and that some victims are brainwashed into believing what has happened to them is good. Many times human traffickers will groom their victims into these lifestyles, Juarez said. It starts off as this relationship or this great idea or fantasy of what this life could be. You know what comes to mind when I hear that? Emma Bailey. Juarez says the abusers often prey on people's vulnerabilities. Runaway youth are at higher risk. Also individuals who don't have family members or who are isolated from friends and family, folks with mental health issues. Now that's a big one in Idaho right there. Right in that vicinity, we hear it all the time in those reports I read, you guys. She says we must all do our part to educate ourselves on the signs and be aware of what is going on in our own backyard. If you don't have ID or personal identification on them, or if they don't have ID or personal identification on them, that might be a sign, because oftentimes their personal items get taken away from them, or they might be traveling with false identification. Also, if they don't know where their work or their home address is, or they don't want to disclose those things. The National Trafficking Human Hotline is 1-888-373-7888. 1-888-373-7888. Voices Against Violence, a 24-hour crisis line at 208-733-0100. That's 208-733-0100. Or through text, you can text them, which is great in case you can't speak, you can't make a noise. I wish they would have made this line actually a little bit easier, kind of like the top one, the number, but you still have a text, so that's good. 408-675-2023. For those of you, if you're out there and you cannot, you can only hear this. I'm going to tell you this last one. If you can only text, I'm going to tell you it three more times. Okay? It's 408 675 2023. It's 408 675 2023. It's 408 675 2023. I hope this reached someone and helps them. I'm going to show you some things now in the police reports that indicate trafficking. All right? And why that house could very well have been, things like that could have been happening. You guys think about this. Who owned that house prior to this? Prior to the Dan guy? A registered SO. That's who. And he got let off. He didn't get any time for it. And he claims that he was coerced into saying what he said. But I don't know. I don't know. Could that have been? Could that have been a house through the university that's always had things like that happen? You know there's something wrong with that house, right? The house has some dark corners in it. There's things that just aren't right with that house. And that, my friends, is why they want that house down. Not because of, maybe because of some evidence in there, but no one, you can guarantee, well, I can't guarantee, but will those photos, will those videos of what really happened in that house ever be shown? Can they ever be shown? It had to be gruesome as all get up. But here's my thought on that too. If it was that gruesome, how come some of those people walking out weren't like throwing up, didn't have like brand new wrinkles in their faces from all the awful things they must have been seeing in there, white as a sheet for one thing? They walked in and out of that house like it was nothing. How could they have done that? Some of them were first timers to anything like that, from what Fry said in one of his pressers. So how come they didn't look like that? How come in a crime scene such as what they claim that thing is, which from what allegedly happened and how they were killed, yes, it would be something horrific. 4 people, and not just shot by a gun. This was a sharp blade they used to do this. There had to have been blood everywhere. So how come there was no trail outside that house? Even if they had suits on, Tyvek suits with booties and hair nets and beard nets and goggles and gloves, how could they still get out without a trail? Because it would have been everywhere in there. And no trail at all except for one latent footprint? Shoe print? Come on, you guys. Put your thinking caps on, everybody. People that do not believe this, you need to put your thinking caps on. I know most of my people out there, I like saying that. Makes me feel special. You believe this. I get it. And you see what I'm seeing. Which is good, because it's like, I don't understand how those other people, the people that believe that they have all the evidence and that whatever they what we didn't see, just looking in an aerial view of that place was not right. Now there's an aerial view that no one's ever talked about that I know of, that I will find, I'll put on here actually, which I think is a, wet stain on the patio out by the couch. It's big. But no one's ever mentioned it that I know of. I mean, I saw it I saw it from the very get-go. First drone video I saw that. And not only that, but there's a backpack on that trail heading up there to the back parking lot. From the patio, the end of the patio, in between like the two, the house and the fence. The patio and the fence, I guess. And then, you guys, something's not right. I also think I saw drag marks on the other side of that fence, like through the snow that was still there, like very little of it, but it looked like drag marks, like like someone had been drugged through there. So I'm going to touch base on some of those things, but this is just wrong that the house is coming down. I'm so disturbed by that house coming down. It should not be coming down. They should not have the ability or the reign over taking that house down. What is going on? And why isn't defense putting their foot down? That is a crime scene that should not have been touched. Things should not have come out of that house. And they went in there with no gloves, no boot, no nothing, no protection. A few of them had gloves, but Fry went in there glove free, baby. He went in there commando, man. When apparently, from what he says, I'm really so pissed off right now. In his presser, or one of his interviews, or whatever, his numerous stupid interviews, where this one he says it should come down right because it had all the chemicals and all those terrible things that were bad for the environment and bad for people to breathe in and all that stuff. Yet there's supermen and women in the Moscow Police Department and on the ISP who can walk in there face mask free, glove free, plain old shoes, no booties on, walk in there and bring stuff out of that house. How come they are so what are they? They have some type of magical force field around them that doesn't affect them? No, they don't. But what they do have is a field of lies that is surrounding them. It's like when you're cooking, I'm thinking of razor clams right now because that sounds so good. But you got the razor clam, right? And you've got the egg and the flour and all that stuff. So you wash the clam up and then you pat it dry with the paper towel. And then you coat it with some flour, and you coat it with some egg, or some, egg that you've whipped up. And then you coat it again in like the flour that's got your seasonings and stuff in it. And then usually we'll coat it again with egg again, like it's a really good razor clam. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And then you fry it up. But before you do that, you coat it, you protect it, right? Those are all those. It's just like these guys were dipped in lies. They're filled. They're coated in lies. Can you imagine what it must be like to remember all those lies? Well, they haven't remembered all those lies. They've messed up, haven't they? They have. They have talked over. They have messed what they're going to say. They have messed up the words. They've messed up times. They've messed up, you name it. They've messed it up. Because it's hard to remember lies. If you've always told the truth, who said this before? There's a saying that if you always tell the truth, you never have to worry about, how does that go? Basically is that if you always tell the truth, you never have to worry about, worrying about anything, because you're covered, you're golden. You told the truth. You're never going to have to worry about a lie. And that's, I gotta find that phrase or that saying, because I sound stupid saying it this way. But anyway, this is my concern. And now I've got videos coming down because certain people feel like they're being harassed or cyberbullied, yet there's other channels that have much worse on theirs than I do on mine. Much, much, much worse. If it's who I think it is. It could be a number of people, but if it's who I think it is, it's interesting to me. Very interesting. So, okay, here's another thing that's really interesting to me. Is for some reason, they're not monetizing my videos or anything like that. I have how many videos? Over 500. And there's like 3 or 4 that they'll monetize. So something's wrong with that. So I'm thinking about doing a Patreon, which I've never done that before. But this is like this has been my life, you guys. I've been spending so much time on this, and I'm seriously not, I've got to get something's going to happen, because I'm just having an issue right now. So, and I'm not begging for anything. Trust me, I'm not doing that. I'm thinking about doing like a Patreon for like a buck or two or something like that. So I want to know what you guys think about it, and if if it's something that you would want to do, or I don't even know. I haven't even really looked into it, so I don't even know how that works. So I gotta watch some videos and stuff on it. But I figure keeping it really low, because I've got content, but I'm gonna have to figure out how to have like stuff for members or something like that, where they can go see stuff before other people. I don't even know how that stuff works, you guys. I don't. I'm new to this. I'm really new. I'm green. So anyway, I would like to know what your thought process is on that. I'd really appreciate that. Anyway, okay, I'm gonna get going. I'm gonna try to get this video up as soon as I can. And oh yeah, I want to play that video up here. Let's see.
January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, bringing awareness to an issue that affects people everywhere, even our own community. Kmvt's Elizabeth Hadley met with Voices Against Violence today, who shares what we all can do to prevent these tragedies from happening to someone that you might know.
You might not think it happens here, but it does. Millions of men, women, and children are trafficked each year, and Idaho is not exempt from the issue.
We do currently have victims under Voices that are under human trafficking, and unfortunately it is. Yes, we do want to say that we live in a safe community, but unfortunately we are one of the biggest hotspots for human trafficking.
You might not know that there are 3 types of human trafficking. That includes sex trafficking, forced labor, and debt bondage. That means working to pay off debt. I talked to Noemi Juarez with Voices Against Violence. She says human trafficking is complex, and I was taken back when Juarez told me some victims are brainwashed into believing what has happened to them is good.
And many times human traffickers will groom their victims into these lifestyles, and it starts off as kind of like this great relationship or this great idea or fantasy of what this life could be.
Juarez says you
guys, what that reminds me of? It reminds me of the OnlyFans and the girls in the sororities. And like, first of all, their pictures are really, mild, and they're just taking photos, right? And then as it goes on, look how sexually explicit some of those photos are. And they're in front of the university. It's like the university is welcoming it. This is something. They're in front of their sorority houses, in front of the university name, and it's okay. Is this what's happening? Is this how they're making their money? See, they all work for a different, they volunteer or make money for different causes, right? And so, can you imagine how easy it is for them to make that money now and not have to go, knock on doors or have a benefit or whatever and spend that time or whatever. All they do is they throw out a picture or two. Sexier the better. They get more money. Ching ching ching, ching ching ching, right? This is what this reminds me of. This is disgusting. And this is wrong. This is the university grooming our students, you guys, your children. Universities are grooming your kids. Try chewing on that for a little while. Think about it. I mean, really, really, really think about that. Of course, this is speculation, in my opinion only. But it doesn't take much to see that is what this is, in my opinion. You think about that bigger entity, that whole educational just force that's around you. You want to get your education, you want to do this. So how much easier is it in the grooming process for something like that to make that happen? Well, they're making it happen, all right. And then, and you haven't even seen, if you let me know if you want to see the real side of what goes on at universities, and I'll make a video of it. Let me know if that's what you want to see, and I'll make a video of it. I've got plenty to share. Okay, back to the video. Whew. Education, grooming, our kids. That's nuts, you guys. That is scary. That is criminal. And yet it is legal. It would seem, right?
The abusers often prey on people's vulnerabilities.
Runaway youth are at higher risk also. Individuals who don't have any family members or are isolated from friends and family.
And she says we all must do our part to educate ourselves on the signs and be aware of what's going on in our own backyard.
If they don't ever have maybe ID or any type of personal identification on them, that might be a sign as well, because oftentimes their personal items get taken from them.
Elizabeth Hadley, Kmvt News.
So what I'm going to show you are some police reports. And there's not one or two or three or four or five. There's a lot. And it's going to take me a while to find them all. But I'm going to try to get all up in here, because they're finding IDs, they're finding wallets, a lot. In fact, one mail carrier, I think it was last year, it's in one of my reports, I think it was either 5 or 7, I can't remember, but all together in one mailbox, he found all those IDs and he turned them in. Now, could that have been, here's my thought processes on that. I believe it was the Palouse somewhere that happened down by that area. And my first thought went to, okay, there's all these IDs, right? My first thought went to trafficking when I heard that. Or worse, I mean, if there is worse. I mean, well, death, I guess, is worse, but it's, I mean, there's no way I can even imagine being trafficked. Oh my God, I can't even. So, why would someone collect all those IDs and put them somewhere for someone to find them, especially in a mailbox where they know it's going to be found? Because someone, somewhere, in their heart, in their soul, in their brain, somewhere, had the audacity to, I mean, not the audacity, they had the mind to do something like that, to actually put those out there, for those to be looked into. Now, do you think MPD looked into those IDs? What do you think they did with those IDs? Do you think they researched to try to find those people? Do you think those people got their IDs back? And if they didn't respond to those IDs to get them back, why didn't they respond? Where are they? Why were those all together? Were they all like, a same age range? Were they maybe all sorority sisters in one sorority? Were they all, I mean, who knows what those were? Who knows what you could find out about all those IDs all in one mailbox? What did MPD do with those IDs? Did they follow through with it? Did they even care? And who put those in there? Who had the mind and the just a little tidbit of the care in them to put those in there for those people to be found, possibly? Maybe it was one of them. Maybe they knew what was happening, and maybe they did it, and they knew they were going to be gone. And maybe someone in the group actually took those IDs. Give me your IDs. We'll put them in here. Someone will save us. Someone will find them in this mailbox. Give me your IDs. Come on, give me your IDs. Hurry up. They're coming. What did MPD do with those IDs? What did they do with all the IDs they find? Did they just stick them on a back shelf in evidence? Or do they throw them away? Or do they call and they find out who these belong to and where they might be? How about we ask MPD that? Because it's a problem in Moscow. Because they find IDs all the time. IDs are turned in all the time. Not usually a cluster like that, but they are turned in. And I can understand it's a college town. There's going to be IDs left here, IDs left there. Going to drop an ID, walking home, whatever. But 5 or to 7 in a freaking mailbox altogether? No, that's not what that was. No, that was not what that was. That was something much more deviant and scary, and could lead to the unaliving of people, because when the people are put in that situation, they don't last very long, most of them. They're meant to take drugs to actually get through what they have to do, if that's even available. Sometimes, I mean, they're not even, but most of them turn into drug addicts because they are forced to take them in the beginning, and then eventually they end up needing them. It's a sick, vicious, ugly, disturbing, gross criminal cycle that they put these people through. And they could be arranged from any age. I mean, one police report talked about a person who saw a child crawl out of a man's trunk, and they went to talk to him, and he told that kid not to talk to him. The kids were crawling out of his trunk. Why were kids in his trunk? What did MPD do about that report? Why were kids in his trunk? Under no circumstances should a child be in anybody's trunk. But when the man was like pulling the children away and not letting this person get close to them, there's a wrong thing going on there. Something's very wrong in this town, in my opinion. That makes my heart hurt.
Tonight, a group of Idaho community outreach leaders gathered to talk about human trafficking and the impacts it poses in the gem state. The focus was mostly centered around what human trafficking looks like and how it can be stopped. Taylor Cook with the Nampa Family Justice Center says it is important to get everyone aware of the threat.
It really takes a whole team to fight human trafficking. We need law enforcement, we need prosecutors, we need victim services, and everybody collaborating together in order to effectively solve this issue.
In recent years, Idaho has seen an increase in cases of human trafficking. In just 1 year, from 2021 to 2022, human trafficking jumped 271%, according to Idaho's Uniform Crime Report. A 2021 National Human Trafficking Hotline report from Idaho shows sex trafficking is the most prevalent form of it, accounting for 78% of those cases. You can read more about Idaho organizations helping survivors of human trafficking right now on our website at ktvb.com.
Human trafficking charges yesterday. BPD says a woman called 911 and hung up around 10:30 in the morning yesterday. Officers called her back and determined she was possibly a victim of abuse. The call came from a hotel on Fairview. When police got there, they found the victim outside. While police were talking to her, the suspect, identified as 39-year-old Freddie McLean, came back to the hotel. He took off, but police found him a few blocks away and took him into custody. When they searched the hotel room, officers say they found evidence of human trafficking. They also say the suspect hit the victim and tried to strangle her. McLean faces several felonies, including human trafficking, attempted strangulation, and accepting the earnings of a prostitute.
The signs of sex trafficking can be subtle, but according to the Idaho Anti-Trafficking Coalition, they're happening all around us. So tonight, a free training on spotting the signs. KPOI2's Abigail Taylor's live to tell us why they believe this is the answer to stopping sex trafficking in our state.
Natalie, tonight's training is happening at the Vineyard in Garden City, and they say that this is a first of its kind event, and they can tell that there's been a desire for it in our community because already there's been more than 1,000 people to RSVP on Facebook. Until now, the Idaho Anti-Trafficking Coalition has primarily focused on outreach to victims. Now they hope to expand their outreach to the community with a focus on prevention. According to the coalition, the rural makeup of Idaho makes sex trafficking in our state distinctive. 75% of cases are familial, meaning people are selling their own children and family members for income.
Idaho just is unique in that we're super, super far behind. And for that reason, we like to live in an environment where we just live and let live. We don't pay attention to what's happening in our backyard. But there are other states who've been spearheading this for well over 15, 18 years. And so it's just time for us to pay attention and really get involved.
Ziegler hopes tonight's event will create a momentum in Idaho that will lead to change. She says more than anything, she wants to see a change in current laws to protect rather than criminalize victims and to remove the stigma against them. And tonight's training is step one to that goal, and they say that there will be many more like this one to come. Live in the Satellite Center, Abigail Taylor, KBOI2 News.
Experts say it's a problem. We just cannot ignore. The coalition says there were 80 social media posts made online in Boise, in the general area, that advertised girls for sex just last month. More than 400 calls to the National Human Trafficking Hotline have come from Idaho since 2007. Tens of millions of adults and children are affected worldwide. The event, again, tonight is free. It will be at the Vineyard in Garden City from 6 until 8 o'clock.
Trafficking. It's a global issue, and it happens right here in the States, but it also happens in your backyard. And local law enforcement is doing their best to put a stop to this rising issue.
Concern that I have from the law enforcement side is that this crime has been occurring. It is just a crime that occurs along with other crimes. And in years past, it has just not been recognized for what it was. It has been either mislabeled or called something else.
Detective Chad Benson has been in law enforcement for 15 years and saw his first human trafficking case in 2014. He said that case involved a house here in Nampa that had some prior history with law enforcement.
There are other issues, the fights, the stolen property, all those things occur with it. So as we try to handle those, it takes somebody at some point to realize that all those are feeding a bigger issue.
After that call and conducting several interviews, police returned to the home.
That's when we realized that there had been a lot of responses to that house for a lot of different things. It was from that particular domestic and an interview with her, and then some subsequent interviews with a couple other females at that house that we realized that there was sex trafficking occurring at that house.
Benson says around 15 victims were being trafficked out of that house in Nampa, and Lindsay Watson is a survivor from being trafficked in that same house.
I just met the wrong people, and I became homeless because I got pregnant, and I had nowhere else to go. So I contacted one of the bad people that I had met, and they took me to the trap house.
From there, the next 2 weeks were unimaginable for Watson, but her saving grace was going into labor.
I ended up giving birth to my baby girl, and the traffickers, like I said, cut it with a rusty knife and tied it with string, and my placenta wouldn't come out, so I was bleeding to death. And I asked them if I could go to the hospital, and to my surprise, they took me.
That trip to the hospital saved Watson and her child's life. However, her baby was then taken from her due to drugs in the infant system. But with help and support from NPD and anti-trafficking nonprofits, she was able to reunite with her baby girl.
I'm great today. I got lots of help in the safe house. Like I said, I got food and shelter and trauma therapy and tons of support and love. And that's really what I needed so much, was support and love.
If you think someone you know is experiencing trafficking, there are resources available to help. You can call 911 or text the number on your screen, 883-737-8888. It's the National Human Trafficking Hotline. It's available 24/7. In Nampa, Jessica Davis, Idaho, News 6.
Time from 2021 to 2022, human trafficking in Idaho jumped 271%, a staggering number. But that data from Idaho's Uniform Crime Report only includes the trafficking cases the investigators know about. Stopping sex trafficking, the illegal movement of people for the purpose of sex exploitation, is a top priority for law enforcement agencies right now. But it's not just the cops who want more attention on this topic. In fact, there's an event tonight that wants to highlight how prevalent this crime here is in Idaho. And Joe Paris, you spoke to those organizers.
I did, and I want to be very clear. There's a lot of organizations that are taking on this problem, but we're just going to highlight one of them, and really because of dangerous statistics that we're going to share with you. A 2021 National Human Trafficking Hotline report, for example, from the state of Idaho, the data, it shows that sex trafficking is the most prevalent, accounting for 78% of all trafficking cases. And statistics like that are why groups like Idaho COBS, Community Outreach Behavioral Services, they're hosting community education events about trafficking, and they're trying to fight child trafficking in your neighborhood. And that is the title of their event that they're hosting tonight in Nampa. It's something that organizers admit is uncomfortable to talk about. What do you know about human trafficking? Does it happen here? Is it common? National data collected by Polaris in 2021 showed 10,359 situations of human trafficking were reported to the United States National Human Trafficking Hotline, and that includes 16,554 individual victims. A window into Idaho specifically. The Idaho Anti-Trafficking Coalition says they aided 115 individuals in just the first 6 months of 2022. More than half of those people are survivors of sex trafficking. But experts say data like that only covers a portion of reality.
Well, it's a lot more common than people realize, which is why it's such an epidemic right now.
Paula Bartholomew is the crisis director and founder of Idaho COBS, a group that works closely with survivors of sex trafficking in the Treasure Valley.
We do have a trafficking belt, which is I-84, but that is not the main number of our victims and survivors. Our main population are native Idahoans, so they live here. Idaho has the largest population of familial trafficking. That's the biggest demographic of the individuals that we work with. Familial is where we are selling our own kids. We're selling our own kids, our own grandkids, our boyfriends, girlfriends, our husbands, wives, our grandchildren for a benefit, for money, for housing, for gas, especially in this economy.
Paula and the COBS team are very busy working with new survivors on a regular basis.
Just an example, yesterday I met with 4 new victims, 2 adults and 2 children, 2 adolescent girls. In just one day. In the last 30 days, I've probably met with 35 to 45 brand new victims that I've never had contact with.
Connecting with survivors is an opportunity to help.
We provide resources, we feed, house, take care of their medical needs, all the things. We keep them safe.
There is also an opportunity for the community to learn about the reality of what is happening, an uncomfortable truth.
And it's not a shame thing, and so people that don't understand that it's happening, it's not to be shame or guilted, it's to help us help you, because it is happening. It's happening in every neighborhood. Socioeconomic, there's no discrimination. Trafficking has no discrimination.
Tuesday evening, COBS is set to host a special education event, Fighting Child Trafficking in Your Neighborhood, 6 p.m. at Good News Community Church in Nampa. Major focus, keeping Idaho kids safe from aggressive predators. many who prey on kids online.
They're fast. They're convoluted with predators, with traffickers, because every single person that they draw in brings money. It's their product. They're not even a child. They're not a girl, a boy, a husband, a wife, a son and daughter. They're a product.
So, of course, this isn't a new problem to Idaho or the United States, but there is renewed interest in it. And Brian, one of the things that organizers and a lot of organizations are talking about, not the politics of it, but The Sound of Freedom, the movie about sex trafficking. And that is an example of international sex trafficking, which is a problem, and it is something that happens. But movies like that, movies like Taken, those are Hollywood examples of these really high-level, big organizational, massive conspiracies. There's also things happening in our own backyard here in the Treasure Valley that start as very simple things. A high schooler gets involved in what they think is maybe just trading sex for drugs, and they don't see that as sex trafficking. That's one thing that leads to another. So it is a very serious topic, and there's a lot of nuance to it.
I think it might open a few eyes when she mentions.
Or how about thinking they were going to do a modeling session, or maybe singing, an audition for singing for a band, or a movie. Maybe they thought they were going to be an actress. Recently, there was something that happened in Pullman, and one of the individuals that I looked up had all of those in his background. He had filmmaking, he had singing through a church, nonetheless, modeling. All of these were connected to this person. This person also goes from state to state. He's all over the place. So, there you go. Onward.
The familial aspect of that and the localization of that, people selling them, as you said, just for everyday items they may need because they need it, but that's the way they handle it.
And a lot of the victims and survivors that groups like COBS will talk with, they'll find women that say, well, I was just working in prostitution. Well, that's still part of sex trafficking and women that get trapped in those situations. Men as well, by the way.
True. It goes both ways. Thanks, Joe.